Well, welcome to another edition of Black Men Speak. It's a podcast that highlights ordinary Black men doing extraordinary things. I'm your host, Keith Dent, and today we're going to have a great show. We're going to be talking about Hoboken today. Um, Shout out to Hoboken and for all the folks that live there, party there, and have a great time. Of course, Hoboken is known for especially its restaurants, nightlife. I guess SantaCon, if they still have SantaCon, I do
Yes,
think they
yes,
still have
yes,
it.
they do.
And it's just a place where millennials and young people hang out and have big family oriented town. And so um, a lot of people just go there just to hang out and have a good time. But today we're going to be talking about Hoboken's other nightlife or street life. And it's something that you won't necessarily see or really even notice. And the reason why I thought it was great to kind of highlight today, for a couple of reasons. One, for those who may not know, I've besides doing this wonderful podcast, I oversee a homeless and teen or a teen runaway and homeless center in Jersey City. And so you would think, how's that even possible, especially for the age that I look oversee, 12 to 17. But there are a lot, or it is the situation where there are a lot of homeless teens and runaway teens in Jersey City or in Hudson County and just all over New Jersey that we just don't really talk about. And had a meeting last week and ran into my guest, who is was just very dynamic. Just so when I walk in, I was really struck by the fact that what he commanded respect. You could tell that he loved the place. He is a pastor, so maybe that was it too. The Lord was just on his heart, and but as I got to talk to him a little more, I really thought, hey, this is an ordinary Black man just doing extraordinary things and should be on the show. And so the name that I'm going to talk to you with tonight is Reverend Dr. Anthony Forbes, not the magazine, but he is the shelter manager of the Hoboken shelter, which opened in 1982. So the great thing about that is that, and he grew up in Hoboken. And so he has a history of Hoboken that most of us probably don't even know or have even thought about. And so I'm going to bring him up and we're going to just talk about his journey and his story, because I don't know a lot of it. Except for his bio, and I can't wait to really hear more. And so, Reverend Forbes, how you doing tonight?
Hey, how you doing, Keith? Thank you, man. I appreciate it
Oh,
for
hey,
for
the pleasure's all.
welcoming me into your space like this. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yes.
Thank you for your kind words too, my friend.
Oh, of course, of course. So, yeah, the pleasure is all mine. And so, Hoboken, the other street life. Now, I know we talked a little bit early, and you thought it was appropriate that I titled it that, and so we will get to all that in a minute. But what
Absolutely.
I wanted to talk about, you are a native of Hoboken.
Born and raised.
And
53
so
years I'm here in town.
53 years. So Ali, we're, almost the same age. We're in the same
Same bracket.
generation. Yeah. So you grew up a Hoboken in the 80s, right? So,
70s.
oh, 70s. Okay.
Yeah, 70s.
70s. Okay,
So yeah,
gotcha.
yeah, that's when Little League, PAL, Pop Warner, all of that was in the 70s.
Okay, gotcha. So tell me what it was like growing up in Hoboken back then.
Oh man, it was different than it is today. We were a blue collar town all day long. Factories, mom and pop shops. We had Maxwell House, we had Level Law, we had Lipton Tea, we had Newman Leather Factory. We had a couple soap companies, Wonder Bread. So I grew up with with the understanding that you got to work hard in order to achieve the things that you want to achieve. So growing up in Hoboken, it was definitely a blue collar town. A lot of Russians, Ukrainians, Jewish, Italians, Irish, blacks, Hispanics. Um, growing up in the projects, the black and brown folks when I grew up were the minority. We were like the third or fourth black family in our building. On our floor we had Russians, we had Jewish folks, we had people from the Ukraine. So we were hungry. So we were just a melting pot of people growing up in the '70s and the '80s. Everyone hung out. Everyone knew each other. Everybody's mother was your mother if they saw you somewhere that you had no business being. So it was a wonderful time to grow up in Hoboken, kind of set the tone for who I am today, the character that I am today, the um, um, vast understanding of different races because I grew up, sleeping at Italians' house, Spanish folks' house, Irish people houses. So none of that racism, so to speak, or classism existed during the '70s and '80s when we grew up in Hoboken. Everybody was
Oh,
the same. It's one zip code, so you can't be better than me because we all live in the same city.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, so it was a
Pass.
little. It was one zip code that was always our flavor. We had one zip code, and everybody played with everybody. All flavors played with everybody. Slept in each other's houses. Been down the shore, Atlantic City, vacations with folks. It was just one big, beautiful melting pot of a city.
Okay. So so when so was there a shift in the town, and when did that really happen?
The beginning of the shift. A good friend of mine, big shout out to George Summers, who was actually my lawyer. He was a graduate student in the early '80s, and he used to come down to the park where we played at. He used to bring a dog with him, his dog. The dog used to always come on the court, man. We used to get so angry with him because, listen, dude, we're from the city, man. No dogs come on the court, so stop it. But he used to 10, 15 minutes, he had to get the dog off. So lo and behold, we had a paper that was called the Hoboken Victorian, and it had on the front page. He was so angry one day. On the front page, it had the invasion of the yuppies, right? And he was angry about that term. So while we're sitting on the bench in between games, I asked him. I said, "Why are you upset about what is that saying? What does that term mean?" He said, "They're talking about me. They're talking about me." And I said, "Well, who are you?" He said, "I'm a yuppie." And then that's when I first found out. I was probably 15, 16 when I first found out that yuppie was an acronym for the Young Urban Professionals. So those guys started moving in the mid '80s, and it just took off from there. We haven't looked back since.
Mm,
We're still moving
wow.
forward. Still moving forward. On top of
Still
that, we
moving
had the
forward.
fires about 5 years earlier. Before the shift came, they were burning a lot of the Latinos and blacks out of the walk-ups, and never found out who did them. But so many lives were lost during that period as well. If you ever get a chance, just look up the Hoboken fires, and you'll see the history of how they burnt us out to get us out of those $1 million condos now.
Wow, I mean
So
that's
that
interesting.
was
Yeah,
the
because you
shift.
hear because you hear about the South Bronx fires, but not necessarily about the.
No, nobody really pays that. That's how the Hoboken shelter was formed 40 years ago. A bunch of clergy got together as buildings were burning. Families had nowhere to live, so they decided to do shifts and stay at the shelter. One clergy person that would take a night to watch over the families. So that's how we started because of those fires. If it wasn't the fires, then we wouldn't even be here as a shelter.
Wow. And so was there, because I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this because we won't get to
No, you can go left. I mean,
all the
it's
questions,
very interesting. It really
but
is, especially the living.
did they, would you say the city didn't investigate the fires, or was it the fact that
I, you know, I, it's probably a combo piece,
Mhm.
um, considering the time and the people that were being burnt out. I love the city, but I don't think we did enough job, even till today. Uh, you know, folks still talk about it who've lived here. When I see folks haven't been here for years, one of the first things we talk about is like, wow, man, I'm glad we're still here. But what about this one from our class and that one from our class that got that died, that perished throughout these fires, and they
So
never
just
found anybody. Never ever anybody was ever brought to justice for that.
and just for a perspective, I would, and I don't know because I hadn't really heard about the fires. These fires were along Washington Street, which is kind of the
Yes,
main
yes, they were.
thoroughfare, the main
Yes,
thoroughfare for all the restaurants and
absolutely, yes,
the
yes.
prime real estate.
And we had a couple on the side streets that are now $1 million condo buildings that were vacant lots for a while.
Okay, okay, great. Thanks for the context, just for people that may not know of Hoboken and that are listening today. So you mentioned before that your where you grew up was diverse, but also you had mentioned, or in your bio, that the goal of you as kids is that you wanted to grow up and become rich and important. And so was that the mantra of all the kids in no matter what race, or was that just primarily African Americans or people of color?
It's. I mean, that's the theme in every urban community. You want to keep your nose clean. You want to go to college. You want to finish. You want to have the right job. You want to live in the right neighborhood. You want to drive the right car. You want to marry the right woman. You want to have 2.5 kids. You want to go on 2 vacations a year. You want 401k, and after it's all done, you want to get that watch with your name on it. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's something that's spoon fed to us, especially in the urban community. So that's spoon fed to us, and we take it and we swallow it. And when you're hustling and you're grinding, you're in the gym and you doing the layups and you're doing the wind sprints and you're doing the crawls, you're doing everything you have to do to get to the next level. And when you're finally there, it's like, okay, and you're looking around and you're the only one there of your persuasion. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a false narrative that's being spoon fed, especially in the urban community, that is our happiness. And I was probably at my miserableness, if we can use that word today, because I brought into the lie, and I brought into the the story of, hey, I did it, now I'm here, so I have to ignore everybody else because I'm here. And it's just it wasn't the life for me, and it's not the life that anyone should be promoting, because it doesn't bring you happiness. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care where you live, what you drive, what's cards in your wallet. At the end of the day, if you're not internally happy, none of those things make you happy. And I found that out the hard way.
Mm-hmm. And that is a great segue. So because you did say that you were miserable. So you had actually had achieved the goal that you had set out for, and when you were young or adolescent. By you were able to get that job,
First of all, I was
secure.
able to keep my nose clean for
Okay,
as a man of color growing up during the crack era.
okay. And
You know,
was that hard where you
yeah, it
grew
was
up?
hard because when I came back home from college for spring,
And
I
where did
never
you
did
go?
just winter
Where'd you
break.
go to college?
The first school I attended was University of South Dakota. I was there on a football scholarship.
Oh, okay.
And when I came back home, um, oh man, I mean, I was gone for about 18 months, and when I came back, it was unbelievable, the scenery that was that was down in the Hoboken housing in the projects. It was unbelievable, vampire central, man. I've never seen
Really?
anything. Yeah, folks who I had left earlier, I'm talking beautiful people, man, that I left when I left the school, and then when I came back, just 18 months later, it was a lot going on. It was a lot going on. So it was challenging. I didn't go back to school either. When I went back, I didn't go back. Started hanging out with the wrong guys, and it was because of a lot of my coaches were police officers and teachers, and they would see me hanging out, and they would pull me over. Yo, get in the car. Let's take a ride. What are you doing? What's going on? So I always had people pouring into me, like, why are you hanging on this corner? This is not your life. This is not for you. And after a while, you start to see no one's going anywhere. So what are you doing? So I ended up rolling back in school, which was St. Peter's College. They started a football program again, and then I went and played with them. And then things I had to get out of that environment. If not, I would have been part of it, without a doubt,
Mm. Mhm.
without a doubt.
Yeah, as soon as you said South Dakota, I was like, oh, I know that must have been rough
Yeah, that
up
was
there.
rough. Listen, they sent me coats out there, and it was crazy because nothing they sent me was warm enough. Listen. Let me tell you something. I accepted sight unseen. I just said, okay, let's go. You want me? I want you. I want anybody who want me. So let's
Right.
go. So I went. I'm going to play my first year. All right, that's all I needed to hear. And there was a couple of us that left. And eventually, within 2 years or so, everybody came back. Because
Mm.
unless you're a brother who's born up in that neck of the woods, you're not used. You can't come from this side of the world, this side of the states, and go on that side and not know
Y-
what you in
You know,
for.
you ain't never seen snow like
Bro,
that.
let me tell you something. I didn't think you could get that cold. That's like beyond freezer. We got a deep freeze in our house we grew up with. It was colder
Oh,
than that. That was the analogy I used. I was like, man, it's colder than the deep freeze in the living room, in the kitchen. It's cold over here. I
wow.
gotta go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, that's good that you had someone in your corner that saw the path that you were leading down
Yeah.
and took that direction for you to change course. So,
Little bumps and bruises along the way,
mhm,
but I was able to stay focused and navigate what I needed to navigate through, so I can separate myself from the pack, which I have always been that person to begin with anyway. So
right,
I
right.
just tapped back into that, not knowing that I was tapping into that. That's just a natural ability I have, is to separate myself from everyone else who's doing everything else.
Right. But then but you still had other factors that led to being miserable. So what were those factors?
Uh, I mean, other than just listen, it's like it's like winning an Oscar, right? And your whole life you think about winning this Oscar and what it would feel like once you're holding it in your hand, and you're looking at it and you're sharing it. At the end of the day, the Oscar is not making you happy, and that's what I thought, that the money, the bank accounts would make me happy, and it did not, because I relied heavily on status in
Mm,
order to make me happy, because that's what I thought I needed to do. I needed this status um, to make me happy, to the point where you contemplate suicide and you're talking about taking your life, because it's like I did everything I can do to get here. Now I'm here. Now where do I go from here? Like, what's next? What's going to make me happy. So a couple failed attempts on trying to do something stupid landed me in church one day, and that's what started this process.
well, thanks for sharing that,
Yeah.
because I know we didn't mean to go back into mental health. I'm sure we'll touch upon it a little bit. But I think a lot of people have that illusion of what a success is about, especially in our communities of color,
Mm-hmm.
whereby if you are able to get that perfect job, um, have the family, or just have the material things that go along with it, that you're going to be successful, and that's not always the case.
No, it's not always the
um,
case,
and
and
so
most of the times it's not the case.
right. And even with your circle, did you have a strong enough circle that could support you, or was it that you didn't have enough, or did they see you in a certain way that also added to the miserableness?
No, I mean, what added what added to it is that everyone who saw me just assumed that, like, wow, man, you driving this, you living here, man. I wish, man, if I had your hand, I'd throw mine away. That type of conversation, you know.
Mm,
But little did they know, I'm like, you know, it's not what you think. It's definitely not what you think. To the point where
Right.
there was days of weeks where I wouldn't even go to work. I wouldn't even leave the house. I would just work from home before it became fashionable working from home. I was
Mm.
living in Riverdale, a section of the Bronx,
Okay.
and yeah, again, I separated myself. I got out. I'm over there, and I'm up in this nice Jewish area, in a co-op building. I'm doing my thing. I'm making 150, just showing up.
Right.
Bonuses and compensation. Close to 200 some years. And and you walk into our Tono up in 57th Street, we pick up a Rolex today, 4,500, no big deal. Still not happy. Still not happy. Still not happy. So
And it was probably also hard to share
you you
your
you
feelings at all.
well, I've been black my whole life, right? And in our community, that's not a conversation you have with anybody, period.
Right.
So that's not promoted at all. That's why I'm so excited over the last several years that athletes, musicians, and people of influence that say, hey, listen, I need to take a break. This is like Simone Biles. She was like, wait a minute, no. She was in the Olympics, and she said, I need a mental health moment. So I'm happy that folks now are starting to recognize that, yeah, sometimes you need to pause for a minute and just kind of put things in perspective. But I didn't. I was trying to figure it out but not figuring it out, and I was all over the place. And
Right.
yeah, to the point where I just thoughts were everywhere, and I had to really regroup. And the only way I thought I can regroup is just by checking out. But that's not an option.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you also at some point end up to be homeless.
That was later on.
Oh, much later. Okay.
Yeah, that was before I got to this point, and actually while I was in this point, after I finished up at Nyack Theology Seminary in Manhattan, um, I was married at the time, and I had twins, and I had a church in Hoboken, for 420 Adams Street. The former
Mm.
mayor was one of my high school teachers, and allowed me to use his social club. Big shout out to Mayor Russo. He passed away since, but his kids are still around. So every Saturday night going to Sunday, Saturday was a miserable day for me because I had to do this thing called church, and I had to tell people they were no good, that they were going to hell. And I'm not a fire and brimstone type of guy because I always have people pouring into me, but I can't pour into anybody else. I got to strip them down first and then bring them back, and that really wasn't my message. And through navigating through that is how I ended up over at the shelter. That's I don't know if we want to venture over to that, but that's how I got here at the
Oh, okay.
shelter. Is because I was running from traditional religion.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then we'll step back a little bit because I wanted
Because
to.
one
I
leads to
really.
something else, and I can't
Yeah,
go
yeah.
there because I got to come
Because I
back.
did want to talk about the. I didn't know at what point that happened, but you chose to go into the ministry.
Yeah, because I everything else I was trying to do to leave here wasn't working. So I said, okay, maybe there is something for me to to do in life that's bigger than me. And I was born and raised Catholic. I didn't know much about the Bible. I just know the saints and Mary and Jesus and all the other players on the team. So at that point, I went on this quest, and I started watching a lot of televangelists, and I started feeling more and more comfortable with the idea of spirituality and the idea of religion. And one thing led to another. I kept seeing every time I would come down the West Side Highway on my way into work, I would always see a
Mhm.
sign. Um, the time is now, Nyack Seminary School, and I was like, huh? I've drive down the street. I drive down this highway every day. I've never
Mhm.
saw an advertisement. And I'm on my way to Staten Island Hospital, so I parked downtown by the Barry Tunnel. That's where my office was, right down the block from 9/11. I was in the city that day, actually. So I would catch the ferry, and I'm sitting on the ferry, Staten Island ferry, on the way to Staten Island, and what do I see? Nyack Theology Seminary, enrolled now. And I was like, wow. So I saw that. I saw that advertisement several times before I said, you know what? Okay, maybe this is it. So that's when I reached out, and that started a whole chain reaction, man, to the point where I am now. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great how the Lord will put signs in front of you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's multiple times and different places to say,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. Absolutely.
here, this is what you should be doing. And then, but the real thing is, if will we follow the signs that are
That's yeah,
given toward us? Yeah.
that's it. That's it. And and when you look back on your life, and you look forward to your mission, you're like, wow, it all added up. It all added up, hand in hand. I ran an at-risk youth program in Essex County for 13 years, and I dealt with the juvenile delinquents from 12 to 18. So once you got arrested, you got put on the ankle monitor, you
Mm.
get sent to me, um, to work with you, and I will report up to the judges and to the county officials whether, hey, send you down to Jamesburg or you can be rehabbed. And because of my upbringing, I was able to really break through and get through to a lot of these guys. So it's your test is also your testimony, and you can utilize it from that perspective if you understand what it is or what it looks like.
Right. And so, and I guess, so then all of those experiences really helped you to change your perspective or outlook on your life and what it is that you were called to do.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. And so, and we touched upon a little bit of that, you then became homeless due to certain circumstances. So, um, what was that? What was that? Because you were at the pinnacle of what I guess we would say being successful,
Yeah,
and then you get to a point where you're probably at the lowest point
yeah.
in your
Real,
life.
real.
And so, what was that like?
Well, at the time of the transition, I'm going through a divorce. I had a couple options. Do I do what typical stereotypical um, black men do when they leave? They take the money with them, and hey, you fend for yourself. I'm going to do me. So I chose the opposite. I grew up with two parents in the household. They held it down through thick and thin. So since we were going through this, it had nothing to do with the kids. So let me still handle my responsibilities, but I can figure out where to stay night to night. That's not a problem. And that's what I did. I figured it out for, I would have to say, 7, 8 years. I bounced around. Meanwhile, still running the shelter, still running at the youth program in Newark. I used to sleep in my office probably most of the times. But
Mm,
not having a turnkey didn't define who I was,
hmm.
and that developed into a serious mantra of mine. You're just because I have nowhere to call my own doesn't mean I'm homeless. Just that means I don't have a key of my own.
Okay. Okay.
And I chose to keep it close to the vest. Only certain folks in my circle knew um, what was going on because of the pity factor that it's associated when folks find out what your situation is. And, so that was by design that I did not say anything to anybody, because then it becomes patting you on the shoulder. It's okay, anything you need, what can I do? Now you start treating me differently, and now that's going to put me somewhere else mentally. So I chose to
Right.
only have a handful of folks know what was actually going on, because and when you're at ground zero, and you're starting at scratch, um, only person that really needs to understand, that knows what's going on, is you. And I preach that all day long. Just because you're going through this doesn't mean this is the end of your life, because I've been through it as well. And if you
Right.
keep it tight to the vest, keep a game plan, you're all right. On top of that, I had my older child. She was in college. So me and her mom, we were paying for that. So that was another reason that money was going somewhere else also. So
Right.
if I can couch surf for a while, that's what I did. I couch surf. I might have been around your place maybe 10, 20 times throughout my time. Oh,
Okay.
I'm back. Where you are? I said, listen, I'm good. I'm out. I'm out eating every night. We go out, so the money is not a problem. I just, I'm just. It's not my time yet. I'm not worried about that at this moment. And I
Okay.
just bounced around, And then when the time came, and I knew when it was came, I said, all right, I'm ready.
Right. Right. And so, yeah, that's great. And there is a question I have for you because I have a thought. But then, so tell me how did you end up at the Hoboken shelter,
Oh wow!
where you started to work there and
I started volunteering first.
volunteering? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm coming down Third. I'm coming down Third Street. McDonald's is at the top of the block. So I'm
Okay.
coming down Third Street.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Me and
Right.
my twins at the time, and they were young. And there was a gentleman standing at the back door. Big shout out to James Shipman. He's one of the senior guys on the team now. Case manager, great case manager. Just retired from Rutgers too. Does a lot of housing programs over there for them. So he's standing at the back door, and I kind of introduced myself. And at this time, remember, I was done with church. Done. I was done with telling people they're no good. It was a horrible feeling, man. This truly is a horrible feeling. I know people that are sitting in my audience. I know what you do. I know the life you live in, and I gotta call you on it. And I gotta talk down to you about it. So that wasn't my message. So I asked him, "Is there anything I can do?" He said, "Well, can you do groups?" I said, "Well, I'm a preacher. I'm a minister. That's what I do. I talk for a living." So he said, "Okay, well, Sunday's not good for you, so you can come back next Saturday." So I came back next Saturday, and I'm still there on a Saturday. I'm still there. you know, I
Right.
haven't. So it went from volunteering, doing groups 1 day a week, to doing groups 2 days a week. I shut the church down. I was done with that, and I did all my time volunteering, doing groups at the shelter. Really, really pouring in to folks who needed to hear some really inspirational stuff. And one thing led to another. And next thing you know, the executive director one day was like, "Listen, we got one spot. We got an overnight spot if you want it." I was like, "Overnight? You see my resume? I'm not working overnight." you know, I was like, "Huh?"
Oh man, that
I said,
overnight thing, I understand that.
"Yeah,
Trying to
man.
get people to work overnight.
I've worked overnight before, coming in the morning though. You know what I mean?
Right.
But nah, I was like, ooh, overnight at the shelter. I was like, I don't know, man. That's a whole nother realm of understanding. So I took up on. I said, listen, I want to be part of the team. So because I wanted to be part of the team, I took it, and one thing led to another. Now I'm in the driver's seat. You know,
So now that's fascinating because so what was that first night like, if you can remember?
that first night was fighting to keep one eye open. Not two eyes. I resigned to I was gonna lose one of the eyes. I already resigned to that fact. I was gonna lose one of them, but I said I can't lose both of them. And so I'm coffee and pacing myself and just it was a culture shock, man. I mean, that was my very, very, very first. My first night was my very first experience about sleeping, about what it's like to sleep at a shelter, man. To see it was like, whoa! I was literally just thrown right in. It was like I did one night with the original overnight guy, and then the next night I was by myself, and
Mm,
it was an eye opener, man. It was really, really, truly an eye opener. The things a pillow, we take for granted, a pillow, a
mm,
comforter, a sheet, a nice bed to sleep in. All of that is taken for granted. All of that is taken for granted. It all came to a head that night, and I said, you know what? This is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. And I'm 13, 14 years in the game now, and it's been a wonderful ride, and it's a great ride, and I love it.
great. And we're gonna get into I want to get into that a little more because I do think that um yeah, before I ask my next question, so kind of set the scene for how the Hoboken shelter operates. Um, what are some of the components of the Hoboken shelter, and what are some of the things, services that you provide that try to, I guess, humanize the individuals that have to come there?
Well, I mean, my motto is always, radical hospitality and restoring dignity, um, because one thing folks on the street don't have is dignity, because of their situation. And radical hospitality is not something that they're accustomed to seeing because they're on the street. So no one looks down; they look away. It's another saying I always say: "Don't look away, look down." So us here at the Hoboken Shelter, we're like a wraparound resource center where we have case management, we're a drop-in center, we're also a shelter, we're a soup kitchen. We also have a housing program where we house upward to almost 30 folks throughout Hudson County, and and our housing program. So we have case management 7 days a week. Um, um, Not social service case manager 7 days a week because social services are closed on the weekends.
Mhm.
But you can still fill out applications for birth certificate, social security card. So all those things that we can do from a social service standpoint, we can also do on the weekend, but it's computer related. But our main thrust is ending homelessness one person at a time, and that's what we do. It's a one person at a time operation. We help a lot of people, but we can only help one at a time.
Right. And birth certificates and social
Social
security cards
security
are
cards,
important
for
because why?
because you can't move without them. You
Mhm.
can't get an apartment. You can't get public assistance. You can't get anything without a birth certificate and a social security card. Every county, every state has resources, money allocated to their county, to the state based on the homeless census that we do every year. So the number in Hudson County is pretty high. So we get a decent amount of money in our county. Not like Camden and Passaic County, some of the larger counties, Essex County, a larger county, those guys get more money than us. However, every county has money for every state has money for their county to assist in programs. And there are programs to get you off the street. But folks don't know about that. I didn't know until I showed up and got knee deep involved, and I found out like, whoa, wait a minute. So you don't have to be on the street. You're on the street because you want. I don't have my birth certificate. I don't have my social security card. Well, you can use the Hoboken shelter as your mailing address, so you can retrieve those documents. So we'll fill them out for you
Mm.
online, and they come to us, and now we start the paperwork for you. Once we have your two documents, social security and the birth certificate, you are 99.9% off the street. The other
Mm.
percent is you doing all the legwork. Now you have to go to this appointment. Then from that appointment, you got to go to that appointment. And in that process is where we lose people because the bounce back muscles are gone. It's like every year I'm getting to the championship. One of the years I'm going to win it. And Michael Jordan, what happened? He won 6 in a row. You know what I mean? So you
Right,
gotta
right.
keep moving. You gotta
Moving.
keep
Yeah.
moving. A lot of folks fall off. A lot of folks fall off. Not even halfway, a quarter of the way. Oh no, Rev, it was raining. Oh, it was raining. Really? Oh, it was raining. My bag got wet, and my bus tickets were all messed up. Okay, well let me
Mm.
see. Let me see the messed up tickets. That's probably just wrinkled. Let me see what they look like. Oh man, I don't have them. So
S-
the
So
old
so self sabotage is a big.
self sabotage
Mhm.
is part of um let me it's part of my story. Oh, poor me, it's part of my story. It's just one more thing that happened to me. You know what I mean? So so we try to eliminate that,
Mhm, mhm.
by tough love.
Right,
Tough love. I
right.
said, you're complaining you're sleeping on the street. but you can't go to the appointment where tickets are provided for you and they're waiting on you. But sleeping on the street is easier. You try to put things in perspective. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
But
Right.
but for folks who don't understand, um, the vast majority of people on the street are on the street not because they lack of resources. I don't want nobody to think that. It's not that. It's a lot of other issues that are going on. Lack of motivation, lack of focus, lack of understanding. You develop a community. There's a sub community, man, that's on the street. There's a shelter community, and then there's a street dwelling community. It's two different communities. The folks who are looking for shelter or come through the shelters to seek aid, those folks never stay on the street. They're in and out. They come in, get the
Hmm.
resources they need, they keep it moving. But the most vulnerable group are the street dwelling. Those are the ones with no bounce back muscles. Those are the ones that said, hey, I'm done. I checked out. When it's time for me to leave, it's going to be time for me to leave. Let me drink my life away until it's time to go. And we lose a lot every year on substance abuse because they just gave up. And a lot of these folks receive subsidies from the government and they drink it all away. A huge misconception with drugs, a lot of alcoholism, not that much drugs, but a lot of
Hmm.
alcoholism.
A
Just
lot of
drinking.
alcoholism.
Yeah, a
Okay.
lot of alcoholism. They just checking out, man. They just want to be drunk all day long. They say being high is not good for them. They like to be drunk. It's easier.
Okay. That's one of the misconceptions. And any other misconceptions in the homeless population that
Everyone's
most
lazy,
people don't
and
see?
yeah, folks, everyone's lazy. Everyone's on drugs. Everyone's delinquent. There's people out here with real stories. There's school teachers, and principals, and investment bankers. There's police officers and firemen. Folks who got somebody got was on the job, got hurt, and they prescribed the pain meds, and they went left with
Mm.
them. They went left with them, threw everything out the window. Everything out the window. Went from, pain pills to cocaine to shooting heroin. And here you are, was the prominent lieutenant of your force he was a Hudson County kid too.
Mm.
Another Hudson County kid, fireman, same thing. Got injured on a job and spiraled out of control. So it can happen to anybody. Um, and there were plenty of nights when I was walking around waiting for one of my friends to come home so I can crash on the couch because they were out. I wasn't rushing them, so I'm roaming around the streets. Man, that's a real thing, man. That's a real thing. Roaming around the streets, and all my money was calculated. I couldn't spend a dollar nowhere because I had money going to other places.
Right.
So I was real tight. I mean, real tight. Grabbing slices. I got a couple crazy food stories, man. But yeah, man, I'm telling you,
Uh-huh.
it gets to a point where you looking left and looking right, and you snatching that slice off the top of the pile. She just dropped it. I
Mm.
watched her. She took one bite, and she just dropped it right on the top. And I come by, scooped it up like a vulture. you know,
Wow.
yeah,
Right.
because I didn't have $2 to buy a slice. You know, so I was just hanging out in pizzeria. It was cold. I had the hood on, and I saw her. She had two slices. She bit one and dropped both of them in the garbage. I said, "Yo, that's crazy." And I took both of them. That was a real moment for me. That was a real moment for me.
Amazing.
That the street
Amazing. Yeah.
life is real, man. If you have nowhere, and if you have no, again, I could have went anywhere I wanted, relative wise, but again, I needed to keep my focus, because I knew
Right.
where I was going. I knew what I needed to accomplish, and I didn't have time for you to pat me on the back saying it's going to be all right, because I know it's going to be all right.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you shared that because I think also maybe one of the misconceptions is that the homeless, they don't have intelligence.
Oh, that's speed. That's
And so I mean, you chose that because you had other obligations that you
yes,
had to
yes, yes.
that you um took care of before yourself. And maybe based on your strength and of your upbringing, you knew that these other things, you would much rather choose homelessness as opposed to your ex-wife and kids being homeless.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's yeah, it wasn't really an option because of my upbringing, and being an athlete, there's always enough time left. Always, there's always
Mm,
enough time left on the clock. Always, always, the glass is always half full. You know what I mean? Never half empty. Half full. That means half full. I can pour more in it. So I always kept that mantra, and not understanding how big mantras play in our lives. We all have them. We all
right.
have a mantra. We all have it. Whether you know it or not, you're saying something repeatedly over and over
Or
again,
again.
and
Okay.
that becomes your mantra, and that's what shows up in your life. So, so I was just putting all the things that I've learned um, to practice, and that's what I teach. For folks to if you don't like this what you're listening to, change the station. That's
Right.
it. If you don't
Right.
like what you're watching, change the station. You know what I mean? So, I say God is like a GPS system.
Right.
Where just put your address in there. No matter how much left you make, it's going to always make you go right. You know, so that was another thing. My mantras, um, every day in every way, is getting better and better. I say that as to this day. I still say that every
Right.
day in every way is getting better and better, and
Right.
that's part of my life. That's how I live.
So then, and that's great. And how did actually Street Life Ministry come about?
Oh man, well, Street Life was born out of the pandemic. So all of a sudden, the pandemic hit us right in the face with a brick, and all the hangouts, all the stomping grounds in the city closed down. So now, not only were our day-to-day guests were on the street, folks who never came to us were also on the street now. They had nowhere to go. The
Mm,
Starbucks, the Paneras, the McDonald's, the Dunkin' Donuts, all the places, the library, everywhere they ducked in for shelter throughout the day were closed. So we had an enormous amount of people on the street. So we already had a outreach lunch program that I do at the shelter. We already had that, but we never had a night one. So we started going out at night under my director. Big shout out to Jacqueline. Leadership. She said, "Rev, I think we should do night outreach." So it was throughout the night outreach when I started seeing my Hoboken friends on the street were telling me about other areas that also folks are on the street and they need the same help that I'm giving them. So after I started going to other places, General Square, Union City, West New York, North Bergen, um, 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 Essex County, Penn Station. I even did some stuff in 40 Deuce in the city, and that's when the groundwork started laying. I started laying the groundwork for street life because there's a whole sub community that does not come to the shelter that nobody knows about, and those are the ones that street life caters to: the street dwelling homeless, LGBTQ plus community, at risk youth, aka juvenile delinquents. So anybody living on the street, our goal is to connect the resources to you, not you to the resources to you. That's our main
mm.
focus. We bring you the resources. So
So,
if you're
mhm.
sleeping, if you're a Jersey a Journal Square guy and you're there and you're not moving, no matter how much I'm telling you we can get you off the street, okay, no problem. We're gonna bring the social worker, case manager to you. We're gonna get your all the information we need to get from you to get your paperwork started, get your birth certificate on the way, to get your social security card on the way. Once we get those documents, we can start moving forward. So that's what Street Life was born out of the need during the pandemic for folks who live on the street all year long, not the
Right.
ones who come through the shelter. Our main focus are the ones on the street, solely on the street, that have nowhere else to go, have basically given up to even walk 7 blocks to the shelter. Those are folks that street life deals with. Because street life is a real
Okay.
life, man.
Right. Right.
Yeah. It takes me back to the Crusaders, and actually,
Yeah. Right.
but actually, that's where the name came from.
Oh, it did. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because if you listen closely to the lyrics, she's talking about the life on the street and what it's like, and it's unforgiving. You know, the streets are
Right.
undefeated; they haven't lost yet,
Right.
and yeah, you know, and my
Well,
job.
and when I put the title together, I was humming the song, but I was like, okay, is it? I didn't. I was like,
No,
but I didn't.
listen, yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly where street life came from. Came from the Crusaders.
So is there a place in Hoboken that, of course, people probably walk by every day where that street life is evident that most people don't know?
It's mostly up on Frank Sinatra Drive, closer to the train station.
Okay.
Um, and you'll catch McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, CVS, Walgreens. Then you have on the opposite side 14th Street underneath the Willow Avenue Bridge, underneath the Park Avenue Bridge, underneath the Viaduct. You know, so there's a whole sub community that lives there. They don't go anywhere else. That's just where they live, on the outskirts of the city,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
especially in Jonah Square. In the Jonah Square area, the cops are the police are cracking down a lot, so they're chasing a lot of the folks in the alleyways. So they're not there as much as they used to be. There used to be a shower program behind one of the movie theaters, the one next to Boulevard Dogs. There used to be one.
Okay.
Yeah, there used to be one behind there. They took it away, so they're doing away with a lot of the things for the street dwelling homeless. But they're all over the county. Harrison is blowing up with a lot of homeless in Harrison. I don't know where they're coming from, but Harrison, another
Mm.
Hudson County city,
Right. Right.
West New York, um, especially right off of Boulevard East, right on the side of the mountain. A good friend of mine, she took me down there, and I was amazed to see that outfit. I mean, the only thing they missing is running water and electricity. It's the only thing they're missing. Those encampments are set up nice.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of South Americans over there. A couple of my South American brothers that come to Hoboken. I started asking about some of the guys that used to come. I said, "Yeah, what happened to this one? What happened to that one?" And they said, "No, you know, they built a little shanty town over there." And I went with them one day. I said, "Wow, sure enough, there it is." Yeah, and now we're getting a lot of influx coming from some migrants coming up. We
Right.
started seeing a few of those show up at the shelter. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa,
I
going
can't
on,
wait to do the
man?
ride along. It'll be quite
Oh, that's gonna be
fascinating.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna hit the whole county.
Yeah.
Let's
Looking
set that
forward
up
to that.
for. I'd like to, try to set that up around Thanksgiving ish, right around that area, because you'll see a lot,
Interesting.
a
Interesting.
lot, a lot going on. And this will be our first um, Thanksgiving on the block. We're calling it.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nice.
So
Nice.
that's the title. My director of social media, I think she's listening. I haven't mentioned that to her yet, but
Well, yeah, I mean, well,
yeah,
you have now.
yeah.
So,
I'm looking to
so
see. I'm
some of
sorry,
the
everybody.
stats of the shelter. You have overnight guests, and I think these are 21 numbers. 12,705. Soup kitchen meals, 120,000. Your average nightly guest, 35.
50.
And then me, oh, 50. Okay. 50, it's 50 now. And
Yeah,
so
50.
meals served daily, 330, and I'm sure that's probably more as
That's
well. But
yeah,
so
because you got
so from
takeouts,
a
folks who don't sit in. The
yeah,
sandwiches
but
are
from a national perspective. So what does that say about our state of
well,
homelessness?
the state of homelessness is first of all. Let me digress for like 2 seconds. Um, I you know I can't stand that word homeless. It's
Okay.
because when you hear that word homeless, if you close your eyes and you listen to the word, nothing positive pops in your mind at all, at all.
Okay. So what do you
Um,
normally say?
I like to say transitioning, folks who are transitioning,
Okay.
because transitioning has more of a um, half full understanding. Hey, I'm transitioning. I'm moving from one end to the other end. So that's one thing I would like folks to start thinking about. When you see folks, they're transitioning. They're transitioning is what they're really doing. They're transitioning.
Okay. Well, it won't necessarily tug at the Grant heartstrings, but
No, it won't. But I'm a junior etymologist,
Uh,
so I like to study words and the meaning of the words.
right,
So
right,
you can't, you're throwing out these terms that are not really accurate,
right, right.
So that's all I'm saying. So a person
I
who's
hear you.
living on the street, someone who is experiencing homelessness,
Okay.
you're
Oh, okay. Yeah.
you're not.
It can be temporary.
It's only
It's temporary.
temporary.
Yeah, yeah.
It's as temporary or as permanent as you want it to be.
Right, right.
Yeah, even if you
Yeah,
have,
I like that. I like that perspective. Yeah.
yeah, even if you have some sort of mental illness, there are programs to still house you that has wraparound services that you're not alone. They can still
Right,
put you in different areas, in different situations that you can still be assisted.
right. Because I think we do
Yeah,
tend to look at homeless as I guess, a state of mind or a state that you can't necessarily get out of
absolutely,
without
absolutely.
with without some assistance. That's also another
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
And so it's really whereby the state of homelessness is really should be on the person
it
to
is.
transition and make that change if they so choose, which is a whole different, a lot more empowering than the way we view it and the way it's viewed in our country.
Absolutely, absolutely. Big, big, big difference.
Yeah,
Yeah, if we just empower folks on a larger scale to understand that you have the power to get out of this. We have the resources as a state, as a county, but you have the power to act on it. And the
right.
only thing you need are two pieces of documentation: a birth certificate and a social security card. That's it.
Mm,
And you can get started on government aid, which is the first step. Then we can apply you for TRA, apply you for Section 8. If you have a mental illness, there's a MASH, which is mental health services for the homeless, where they'll scoop you up and evaluate you with their doctors and place you in your own house, in your own apartment, or your
right,
own
right,
living situations in a group if that's what's needed.
right. Well,
But
your social media person is watching probably, so that's your next PSA.
Yeah,
There you
yeah,
go. It
exactly,
takes
exactly.
two documents.
Yeah,
So
two
there you go.
documents. That's right. That's it. It really does. It takes two
Yeah, it takes
documents.
two to get,
That's it.
get you out of that life. That's
I
all.
listen, man. To get you out of that street life,
Yeah,
it
that's
takes
it.
two. You want out of the street life?
That's
We
right.
need two documents. That's
That's
it.
right. That's
That's
right.
it. Yeah.
So in a two couple more things. So in a full circle moment, you were just in, I think it's in April,
May,
May.
April, Mayish. Yeah.
You were elected commissioner of the Housing Authority
Oh,
for
that was a full
Hoboken.
circle. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
Um,
how did it feel to oversee an area you once lived in, and then basically what are your future plans for the housing authority? So because you have a fascinating tale about the housing authorities.
yeah, I always say two things came out of Hoboken. Frank Sinatra and me is is is, is what I tell folks.
Okay.
I said me and Frank Sinatra, two most famous people that came out of Hoboken. But you know the Hoboken housing is it's my birthplace, it's my home, it's where I was raised, it's where I honed my skills and developed the character, the person that I am. My family lives there. My family still lives there. So to see it in its state now, it's sad because that's not the housing that I grew up in. That's not the community that I grew up in. So um, we're not as community oriented as we were when we grew up. I understand different time, different place, different people. So what I would like to restore back is that sense of community, that sense of pride where you're from. We had captains on every floor. My mother was a captain. There was 5 or 7 apartments per floor, and every month or every 3 months or 2 months, that captain was a captain for 2 months. That means you were in charge of cleaning the floor for 2 months. And that's that sense of community, that sense of
Mm,
pride. That
mhm,
you wouldn't throw something outside on the street. Even today, if I'm walking by and I see somebody drop something, I'll comment. I was like, wow, hopefully, apparently you don't live here because you're just throwing trash on the streets where I live. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, but
mhm, mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
So, one of the things is restoring the community atmosphere. Also, allowing folks to understand that, that housing, public housing is temporary. This, that's two, three, four generations in some housing developments, 4 or 5 generations, and I would like to be part of stopping that cycle of folks who live in the housing. It was always taught to us we were one and done. Why would you want to live here? Don't live here. We even hanging out as young kids, our parents allowed us to travel the city because why are you hanging out here? I don't want to see you out here. Go up to the park. Go somewhere else. And that's where
Mhm.
we honed in on our athletic skills, and that's when we met other kids from the city that didn't look like us, but the common ground was sports. And because of sports, it allowed me and my brothers and my sisters to have a totally, totally, totally different perspective on what it is or what it's like to grow up in Hoboken, because we didn't have that stigma that that most of the blacks and brown folks had who did not play sports.
Right.
So that's one of the main things I would like to capitalize on is bringing back the community in the housing authority, because it's lost.
Right. Right. Well, that's great. So I always like to end the show, because as you said, I mean, and I wanted to kind of bring this back because it seems like at the time, the mantra or the thought you couldn't really talk about one, um, how well you were doing, and then also how bad you were doing. So it was hard to just share anything about how you were feeling. So one of the things I like to do is, as a black man or for this show, is that everyone is doing such great work, to be applauded. But one of the things that also can yet still go uh, undetected or unnoticed is our how we're doing. So I always like to end the show with this question. So, Reverend Forbes, how are you feeling right now as a black man?
Very empowered, um, very confident, very strong, um, understanding that my role in this role is to stay strong and to be positive and to be the light in dark in the dark places. And that's how I'm feeling. I'm feeling real strong. I'm feeling like the light in dark places. Anywhere and everywhere I go, the light is always going to be on, because I am the light as well as everybody else is the light. But I know I am. So as a black man, I keep my light on at all times. There's no, oh, I forgot, oh, I didn't remember. Nah, I wear my blackness on my sleeve and understand that every day that I have to represent myself as well as the group that I represent in a positive light.
Well, Reverend Forbes, thank you for that. And I also just thank you for um, putting a shedding light on the other street life that is out here and actually painting a very good picture that things are okay and that things are going to get better. So, and that's a testament to just not only your work, but who you are as an individual.
Absolutely, thank you. I appreciate that. I got a couple of things coming up, if you don't mind me mentioning.
Sure. Yeah, please.
Um,
Please do.
we are having our fundraiser. It's a happy hour fundraiser at the 23rd at Wicked Wolf, which is on
And that's October or September?
no, September next week.
Okay.
Then we have the Arts and Music Festival on October 2nd. Then we have a few other things, so they can always check on my gram, street life underscore life underscore ministry, or you can pull us up on the web, streetlife ministry .org. I got to get used to saying all these things.
Yeah, and now and hopefully people will go to that website and just support however
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can, and you never know where a volunteer opportunity could change your life.
Yeah, yeah, and also you can download a app called Charity Quest. It's a volunteer app that has volunteer opportunities throughout the city and between Hoboken and Jersey City. So we're on there as well as a Hoboken shelter, as well as lunchtime ministries. So there's if you want to volunteer, you have opportunities to volunteer. The fundraiser is to raise a van, so I can really do the street outreach the way we designed it to be, um, with a van as a wraparound type services. So we'll have everything we have in the shelter will be on the van, so you don't have to leave where you are. So that's the purpose of the fundraiser. We do also have a GoFundMe um, as well. Just look up GoFundMe Street Life Ministries. You'll see it there.
Great, great. Well, once again, you can stay on for a few, but thank you for this, and I look forward to um, hearing more about what you're accomplishing, and I'm sure we will definitely be we'll create something powerful.
Yeah,
So,
no, no,
you
no.
know,
We definitely will. I want to also give a big shout out to my beautiful wife. Um, she was um, the one who I was waiting for to start it all over again. So I was happy that she came into my life as well.
great, great. Well, thank you, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
All right, my friend.
All right now.